welcome to yet another edition of Bits to Billions. Now, it's rare to find a unicorn in the manufacturing space in India that has ambitions of making in India for the world. But that's the difference here with Zetwerk. We have the co-founder and CEO Amrit Acharya, who wants to bring together OEMs and EPC firms with small and medium enterprises and really help manufacture components for a wide array of industries. Amrit, welcome to the show. What do we have right here? Which industry does this go in? Do these components go into?
Yeah, so these specific products are called jaws and fixtures. They are used for holding machine components together. This is primarily for automobile industry, aerospace industry, and the space industry. More broadly, some of the things we make in this factory ultimately go into the fuselage of an aircraft, or they go into the fuel injection systems of various kind of automobile components.
Right. Is it exciting to, train for engineering and actually do engineering, because we see so many people doing civil and mechanical and aerospace and ultimately crossing over to software and internet?
I mean, I was part of that trend. Like, I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering, but I ended up doing nothing close to electrical engineering for many years. In fact, I was at McKinsey for a bit. But at my heart, I always felt that calling, that I really liked building things using my bare hands sometimes, and we wanted, when I came back from the US to India, building a company which held true to those roots in my case was very important for me.
What I also wanted to ask you, Amrit, is if I look at your own trajectory, right? As you said, you did electrical engineering, you have roots in Odisha.
Yes.
Then you went to IIT Madras, you worked at ITC, then you did your masters abroad, you worked at McKinsey, and then you decided to come back in India in an industry which is all about forging and casting and machining and fabrication. You can call it, unsexy at a time when we've seen so many people do internet startups.
Yes.
So why did you decide to choose an unsexy industry, so to speak, the road less traveled?
In my first job at ITC was to build a new factory for them. In fact, when I joined, they had just bought the land, and over the next 2 years, built a lot of the buildings, bought a lot of the machines, hired a lot of people. And I really fell in love with manufacturing back then. I did that for 2 years, and then I took a detour after that. But when I was looking to come back to from the US to India, I looked back at what I had done before. And my co-founder Srinath, his family business was also into manufacturing. His father ran a small manufacturing unit, not that different from this one where we are here today. So while it was unsexy, for us it was very sexy because we understood the pain points in a way which it felt unique to us. It felt very authentic to us, that these are problems we are passionate about. I certainly had felt that between the time I was doing this work at ITC to today, nothing much had changed in this industry. And I felt that I wanted to drive some change there.
Right. Amrit, the name Zetwerk means strong foundation. How did you come up with it?
Yeah, so when we were looking for a name, if you look at the history of the manufacturing industry, a lot of the companies are good companies, are European or American companies. Even L&T was started by 2 Danish engineers, Larsen and Toubro. Of course, it was a strong foundational Indian company. So we wanted a name which was European to signify excellence.
To signify quality.
To signify quality, and Zetwerk actually means strong foundations in Dutch. It also rhymes with network, so it was a great combination of all factors.
Right, and today if I look at your client roster, right, it has the who's who from the world of manufacturing, EPC, from L&T to BHEL to GE to even Flipkart. How tough was it to go to these giants and convince them that we are a 3-year-old startup, 2-year-old startup, and we will make these things for you?
Yeah. So these things take time. While we see the ultimate output of all the hard work that goes into company building process, the reality is these are never overnight successes. There's a quote I like: "It takes 15 years to become an overnight success," and in some cases that's very true for us. Like a lot of these companies, we have taken our time to feel confident that we can service these customers over a period of time, and vice versa from their side to us. Like a lot of the questions we get initially are, "Hey, where is your factory?" And then we have to explain people the model, like, look, this is a different way of getting your products manufactured. Ultimately, what do you care about? You care about quality, you care about timelines, you care about price. We will meet all of those three requirements, but the way we do it is slightly different from what you may have experienced before. Now that's a journey. Some companies understand that, and those are your early adopters, and some companies take a little bit more time. But what we have been able to demonstrate time and again is that the model works. In fact, we are sometimes better than their existing alternatives because we diversify the risk of manufacturing across many suppliers. A single order at Zetwerk does not go to a single supplier; it goes to 5, 10 suppliers, and so we are often 10x faster than what they would have experienced by themselves. So it starts small. Every customer gives us a small order only at the beginning, but what we see is over a period of time they 10x their business volumes with us over a year.
Right. Amrit, we are also talking at a point where, if you look at the macro, people are talking about fears of a recession in the US. Even in India, there is worry of inflation, the impact, the knock-on effects that it has. Startups, you live in the startup hub, so I'm sure you're hearing a lot about layoffs and funding winter. Where does Zetwerk really stand here? Because in a sense, your fortunes are tied to, the macroeconomic scenario, the macro environment. So how are you kind of navigating this tough phase?
Yeah, I mean, so couple of things. One is, we turned profitable as a business last year. We have not announced these results publicly yet, but they'll be public soon. And we did it. It was not the flavor of the season. To your point, there was a lot of emphasis on growth. While we also grew a lot last year, we grew profitably, and hence, in some way, our destiny is under our control because we can choose to go aggressive or not, and we don't have to rely on some of these extreme measures that you talked about because in some way our destiny is under our control. That being said, we have done a few other things. Our business is very diversified. One is across all these industries. We serve oil and gas, we serve aerospace, we serve auto, we serve infrastructure, we serve consumer electronics. While there is recession, there's no recession which is universal across all sectors. There is cyclicalities within sectors. So some go up, some go down.
So some will hedge you if the others.
Yeah, we have a lot of natural hedge. Secondly, almost 25% of our business comes from the US and Europe.
But isn't that going to be a worry? Because everybody is talking about how US itself will slip into a recession.
Yeah. Now we are certainly seeing that to some extent. Like some of our US customers, the pace at which they were doing business with us, there is a difference between this year and last year. That being said, we are also big in India. So what I mean is there are hedges. There are pockets, times when US will be very strong, which is what we saw last year. This year US may be a little bit soft, but that's when our India business kind of takes over. We are also diversifying into Middle East, we're diversifying into Europe.
Yeah.
So the idea is that, look, these are very hard things to predict. Which industry will do well at any point in time, which country will do well at any point in time. Our idea is to build a resilient business where each of these things by themselves don't significantly affect the.
But will you also have to lay off, or are you hiring, or are you
we are business as usual. There is no change in how we are operating.
And you're capitalized as well because you raised a.
We have we have raised close to $500 million over the last 4 years, and most of it is in the bank, and we are profitable, so we are in a good place.
Amrit, I also wanted to get your thoughts on, what is it about the air at IIT Madras that it seems to produce a lot of these interesting deep tech startups. Of course, you have Zetwerk, then you have Sridhar Vembu of Zoho, who also wants to reimagine R&D and manufacturing in India. Then you have very interesting space tech startups like, Agnikul, Cosmos and Galaxy Eye.
You have Aether also.
Yeah. So what is it about IIT Madras that seems to produce more of these deep tech startups?
IIT Madras historically, at least to my knowledge, has had a very strong technical orientation. So a lot of the people we looked up to were people who used to go for doing their PhDs in Stanford or Berkeley or some of these places. And they were doing PhD in very technical fields. So in some way we are emulating them in a more business context. We are solving really technical problems that way. IIT Madras also did something really well 10 years back, when I was still in college, they introduced this thing called Center for Innovation,
Yeah.
which was specifically for hardware kind of oriented companies. And today there's a thriving ecosystem of, I know people who are designing wheelchairs, people who are designing EVs, people who are designing, some of the professors have become entrepreneurs. And a professor becoming an entrepreneur will not start a food delivery company. They will start something which is in their specialization.
Yeah.
So that's part of the culture at IIT Madras. Yeah.
How were you in college? You used to take part in the Sarang and Shastra, or were you? Like
Yeah, I was in Sarang. We had this thing called Core Group, which was designing the festival. I was in charge of getting money for them. So in some way,
So
nothing has changed.
lessons.
Fundraising in some way I learned at Sarang. At Shastra, we had these lot of programs. One of this thing called Junkyard Wars,
Yeah.
which is basically we went to a workshop and built a vehicle from scratch. We won second prize there when I was in my second year, and through that I got an internship at Bosch. So I've been very hands-on, technical, quote unquote, in my entire journey that way.
Founded in 2018 by Amit Acharya, Srinath Ramakrishnan, Rahul Sharma and Vishal Chaudhary, Zetwerk is a manufacturing platform connecting original equipment manufacturers and engineering procurement construction customers across India, North America and Southeast Asia with small and medium-sized enterprises. It is present in categories such as fabrication, machining, casting and forging. It helps customers in procuring custom products which are not available off the shelf, real-time tracking and project management all the way till delivery. It has over 100 clients in North America, ranging from small enterprises to large conglomerates. It makes nail clippers for one company, for instance, seen as a niche market but used widely at the same time. Most of its founders have a background at the IITs or ITC. It recently elevated Ankit Fatehpuria as its 5th co-founder.
Vishal, Rahul, Ankit, thank you very much for joining us on Bits to Billions. So, very interesting composition of founders. You all either have an IIT connection or an ITC connection. So, tell us a little about that. How did that come about? And ITC especially seems to be seems to have a very strong bond with Zetwerk.
Yeah, so after IIT we went to ITC. That was our first job as management trainees. Coincidentally, between me, Srinath and Amrit, we had the same boss and we had the same location, Guntur.
Was the boss so bad that all of you had to leave?
No, actually, he also happens to be an angel investor in our company. Okay. So we bonded very well with him, and financial independence, first job, 3 of us would go to bar together, would talk about love life together. So that's how we became very close. Eventually we parted ways. People went on their different directions, but when we thought of starting something, this gang was the first group we'd reach out to.
And you also have an ITC.
Yeah, so I didn't work with them. What happened when they moved out of ITC? Then I moved to a new office where my boss was the same Vishal is talking about.
Okay, this boss seems to be the glue that.
Yeah, and that boss referred Ankit.
Yes.
Please take him.
Yes, yes.
But Ankit, do you feel a little left out? I mean, there are like 2 IIT Madras and one IIT Kharagpur and
absolutely not. I am super comfortable. If there was one more chartered accountant in the gang, then probably I would have felt a little uncomfortable. But it's like one.
Now he kind of can reign supreme as the sole chartered accountant.
Of course. I was the one who wasn't part of the ITC gang, right? I ended up working with Srinath at Blackbuck. And that's how the connection came into existence. So I'm the only one who is not from an ITC, I'm from Blackbuck.
So there's an IIT, ITC and a Blackbuck
exactly,
mafia
yeah.
Play here. So the cliche goes that, 2's company, 3's crowd. Here you have 5 co-founders. Srinath is not here. But how does the dynamic work? Is it like too many co-founders in one go, or is it just, you guys doing your separate thing?
Yeah, so I think we are very clearly defined as we have evolved over the last 3.5 years on what mandate each of us run in the company. So I run the whole industrial mandate. Rahul runs the consumer mandate, and Ankit runs the whole upstream mandate for the company. So that way our boundaries are very clearly defined, the asks are very clearly defined, and But at the same time, it always helps to dig each other's head to take inputs on what is it that if I need help on something, I would go to Rahul or an Ankit. But the boundaries of work are fairly clearly defined. So that way, it has worked for us so far.
And to add to that, right? Of course, in the initial days, you would find it difficult because you're new folks who have come in again to work together. But we decided in the very first go that when we take a decision, the decision has to be about the company. We put the company first above all of us. So in that way, whenever you call out that, hey, are you putting the company first, the decision making becomes easier. And that's the alignment that has been working for all of us.
So who has the final veto or the vote among the 5?
We don't have that culture of final veto or vote. It's always comes as a group consensus.
Yeah, we try to convince each other on certain things. And for example, if I raise out few risks or if I raise out few doubts, everyone tries to convince and then take a call for the company, right? If it's in the end making sense for the company, why not, right? How can it happen that I might feel it's not working for the company and someone else might feel it works, right? Ideally, both have to align. So the culture is to align and drive it together rather than to take unilateral decisions.
Yeah, I don't remember any event where we had to put something to vote.
We have a culture of disagree and commit, but rarely it happens. When we walk out of the room, we agree and walk out.
Okay. You also straddle, a very different world because you have part of the old economy with you. That's the segment you service. But you're also trying to marry that with the software solutions you have for tracking and so on and, matching requirements. So how does this reflect in the kind of hiring that you do? Because you will need specialists in industries like say oil and gas or consumer or capital goods, but you would also need technologists who are, marrying all this at the back end. So in terms of integration of workforce, has that been an issue where, the two twins kind of don't meet?
Yeah, so I think we have very distinct people. On one hand, like you said, software engineers who were coding for a very different kind of a company before and now they are working with us. And on the other hand, hardcore technocrats to build refineries or some of that stuff. But I think as founders, what we have been able to drive is the marrying of these two very independent worlds, and both see a lot of value. Because see, historically, industrial as a segment has never got a lot of love from the technology side, right? There are not many softwares, there are not many tools to ease the way they do their jobs. And our product managers, our technology team appreciate that a lot, and they see a lot of value. This is a lot of people today are doing, payment solutions, and a lot of people are doing e-commerce solutions. So this is a very new, exciting area for them, and a totally untouched world. So we keep driving that alignment, exciting people about the software folks. And even the technocrats in our company who come from the engineering background, for them also this is a very different world, online tracking. They've never seen something like this before, and that's exactly where they're able to give the very right kind of inputs, because they have the details, the nuts and bolts of how it should actually be done. They understand it better than any of us. So I think so far we have been able to marry the two worlds very well by driving a very strong alignment between them. Yeah, you want to add something?
I think Vishal is absolutely right on that aspect. In initial days we also figured out that we'll require both the worlds to exist together.
Yeah.
Right? We thought we'll just do it ourselves, and realized there's a lot of things that we don't know, and hence the folks from the industry give that knowledge. But at the same time, they're so excited to see something happen because they always imagine that why can't we do this, right? For example, they're also consumers at one end.
Yeah.
They're ordering on Swiggy. And when they order on Swiggy, they also realize that why can't we do a lot of things that Swiggy can do by giving us on our phone, we can do the work as well on our phone. And that opportunity they never got. So they know that they require that particular side, which is missing, which is the technology part. And the technology folks always are excited about manufacturing. So they also get to know about how manufacturing happens, and the culture of the organization helps drive this synergy between the two of them.
Right.
Another aspect I would like to add is, in a lot of these industrial full stack conventional companies like L&T, Tata and all, the freshers or the mid-level managers, when they come from their college, want to implement some sort of a technology, want to change the way of working, they don't get that liberty because these companies run with their own long SOPs. But over here, that flexibility and our mindset is technology, So even the guys who join us in the ops role, they get that liberty to, kind of do the same thing in a different way, marry technology and business together.
When I look at Zetwerk, apart from the lines of business you have today, the obvious derivative use cases would also be around logistics or procurement materials. Is it something that you're already doing in a big way, something that you will perhaps double down on going forward?
We are doing bits and pieces of it. So if you look at our business from a supplier lens, if you look at the SME as the heart of our business, in some way we are giving new orders to that small manufacturer.
Yeah.
But that's not the only thing that they need. Once they get an order, we feel that the ecosystem to execute that order is broken in our country. Whether it's logistics, whether it's procurement, whether it's working capital, there's a host of services which a typical small manufacturer needs, which are missing in the country today. Over a period of time, we have started to think about our business that way. Like of course, we start by increasing the revenue of that entity. If they were doing 1 crore of business last year, via Zetwerk, this year they'll do 1.5 crores, 2 crores. But over and above, how can we help them execute that better? So while we are not doing logistics yet, but we have started experiments with working capital, with procurement, etc. And increasingly, they will be a part of our strategy moving forward. The idea is to build an operating system for manufacturing.
So credit, B2B.
Credit, helping them buy raw materials better at a faster speed. See, one thing we realized when we were looking at our data, when you give an order to a SME to make a product from start to finish, there are, let's say, 10 steps in that journey from step 1 to step 10. 80% of the delays happened in step 1 itself, which is buying the raw material. People were taking long time to buy that raw material. And why was that? For various reasons, that their cash was stuck, they were waiting to get the best rates, etc. And that's when we realized, to solve for our customer experience, because our customers value on-time delivery, they value quality. Ultimately, if the things are breaking at the last mile, and if we really want to make a dent, we actually have to solve this problem at some point in our time. We can do it through partnerships. We don't have to do everything ourselves.
In terms of policy, what do you think needs to be done better for manufacturing companies like yours in terms of improving the ease of doing business?
Sure. No, I feel like fundamentally there's been, we have seen the business from last 3-4 years only, so we didn't know what existed before. But certainly things like GST, things like PLI, which is an incentive scheme by the government to encourage production of various items in India. These are certainly real impact that we are seeing. Like, I'll give a simple example. With GST, what has happened? Prior to GST, the country was very localized. Like if you were a manufacturer based in southern India, your market was limited to southern India because it was very difficult with excise and VAT. But today the country has opened up. So your market has become, there's one tax. And because of that, the market has opened up in a big way. And we are seeing supply chains being reconstructed as we speak. And definitely we find ourselves at the right place at the right time. Some of this we did not anticipate. But it has been a big game changer, at least as far as manufacturing is concerned. And secondly, there are things like if you're creating a new manufacturing entity, there are a lot of tax rebates. The taxation that you're subject to is lower than a normal new corporate. And things like PLI, which encourage production. And production can be both for domestic and for exports. The only thing is we have to be a little patient. These things don't happen overnight. Like even GST, it's a 4-year, 5-year process. We are starting to see the impact of these things today. Every month we are the government is setting records in terms of GST collections. But these things take time. Certainly the intent is very strong. That's what I can say.
But any challenges that you see that can be done better in terms of the ease of doing business as someone who's in the manufacturing space today?
Nothing in particular that stands out. I think there is of course a process for everything, and those processes have been set for various reasons, historically reasons. So it's not up to us to question those. I think the more importantly than looking back, it's important to look forward.
And be long-term impatient, long-term patient, as you said. But if I look at the first, been 4 years since you started, you've already had a pivot, and now you're kind of confident about the space that you're operating in. What are the next 4 years or next 10 years going to look like for you in terms of where you want to be?
Yeah, I like to answer this question in a more macro way. Like if you look at various indices for India, if you take steel consumption, it's a very esoteric metric, but the per capita consumption of steel in India is around 70 kgs per person. To put this into context,
I'm not sure how many people will know that statistic.
to put that into context, the world average is 200, 250 and China is close to 400. Which means that at least in our lifetime, if we believe that India will be a 5 trillion, 10 trillion economy, all of these things will grow. Like what we are building is the pipeline of the economy in some way. All of the consumer businesses, all of the other, like let's call them front end businesses depend on us in some way to succeed, to create that strong back end that a country which is a 5 trillion economy deserves. So that is our goal. Like as the country grows,
Zetwerk will also
grow at some point.
Any entrepreneur who's really inspired you in the way you want to build Zetwerk or the way you have built Zetwerk so far?
Yeah, we really look up to, I think companies which have built strong teams.
Like
I think the Meesho guys have done really well. Oyo, for a long period of time, they have challenges in their business, but I think they have built a very strong team, very strong culture. So these are companies to look up to.
Right. On that note, thank you very much for talking to us on Bits to
Yeah, thank you for.
Thank you.
Thank you for.